I was going to do a different video today, but yesterday on a live stream, I was talking to this young kid, nice fella. He was telling me how he has done 3 years of college and he had to leave because he just felt it was just a waste of his time. And he'd done 3 years and he had close to $100,000 in debt. The kid, a smart kid, but he'd gotten into this train of getting into more and more debt to pay for his education, his so-called education, because he himself told me that it was a complete waste of his fucking time. He wasn't learning anything. It was just SJW bullshit because he was studying English, of all things, right? I got a minor in English back in the early 90s, and even back then I knew it was just a bunch of bullshit. So he did 3 years of this shit, got nearly $100,000 in debt, decided to drop out for a bit, and he's starting a job, $10 an hour, and you know, this is a smart kid, and I wish him only the best, okay? I'm not, dancing on another man's grave here. But this kid, he was telling me, and he used this great expression, he called it a labyrinth of debt. He has this labyrinth of debt whereby he has to pay $200 a week on his loans. There's no way he can afford it. $200 a week, that's close to $900 a month. And he's working something at a job that's minimum wage. There is simply no way that he's going to be able to afford paying back those loans. Not at $800-900 a month. So what's he going to do? He's going to postpone. And that debt is going to snowball. It's going to get bigger and bigger. It's going to be like a fucking cancer on his life. This is a smart kid. He had his head screwed on straight. He was reading the right books. You know, of course, not taught in college, right, where he was supposed to read the right books. No, he was reading them on his own. Poor bastard. He was reading the right books, his head screwed on straight, smart kid. And he'd gotten fucked by the system, by this, the college industrial complex, okay? Now, you have to understand the system, who it's built for, okay? You have to understand who benefits. I always tell you guys, always question who benefits. And I'll tell you who benefits from the college industrial system. The college industrial system benefits administrators. Administrators and also investors. You know, like a few years ago, 10 years ago, there was the subprime loan crisis. And everybody knows what it was, that they took a bunch of mortgages, bundled them up, and sold them as bonds, right? Well, they do the exact same thing with student loans. And investors love student loans because they are guaranteed. Because unlike in a mortgage debt, a student cannot declare bankruptcy and just forget about the debt. Even if a student in the United States declares bankruptcy, he still has to pay his student loans. So that means that in a very real sense, student loans are guaranteed money. So investors love them. Now, let's look at the administrators. You know, I read this tidbit, I think it was on Twitter or someplace like this, and I checked it out and it's true. University of Michigan, there are 100 administrators in their diversity and equity program. 100 administrators. Now, if you think that those 100 administrators, on average, get a salary of just say, for the sake of argument, 50 grand a year, which isn't that much. 100 administrators, that's what? $5 million a year. How many students need to pay for $5 million a year? Well, if you say that roughly you have $25,000 a year in fees and tuition and what have you, it means that you basically need 200 students to pay for the salaries of those 100 administrators. Administrators, not professors, administrators. Because that's what's going on in universities today, in American universities at least. The professors, the number of professors are not growing. It's the number of administrators. And here's the worst part. Insofar as professors are concerned, a lot of those professors are no longer on the tenure track. They're visiting lecturers. They're associate professors. They're people who are working on yearly contracts for a fixed salary, who are not on the tenure track, and who have to renew their contract every year. They're like, journeyman academics who never find a home. And they're cheap. They're much cheaper than tenure-track professors. That's why all of the universities are going in that direction of hiring associate professors, guest lecturers, and so on and so forth, not tenure-track professors, because they're cheaper, so that they have more money for this administrative layer. And students are paying for it via debt. This fellow I was talking about at the beginning of this post, what did he pay for with $100,000 worth of debt? He paid administrators. That's who he paid. He paid for the yearly salary of 2 and perhaps just 1 administrator, and he is saddled with this cancerous debt that's going to be around his neck for years. Actually, it's going to be around his neck for decades. Decades. The average student in the United States takes 21 years to pay off their student loans. This is a catastrophe. It's despicable. It's bankrupting a generation of students for the sake of administrators, of diversity and equity administrators. And the students are getting the shaft. The students, you're getting fucked. And the worst part is that you're not learning anything. You're not. Because what happens in American universities is that, nobody ever fails. Nobody ever fails, and therefore nobody ever learns. Because you can only learn if there's a real risk of failure. You only learn when things might go south and you might get an F and then eventually kicked out. If you can never fail in a university, then you're not getting an education. And we see that. The kid I was telling you about, he was talking about all the SJW bullshit, and he was saying nobody ever gets failed. Nobody fails a course. Nobody gets kicked out, because universities view students as customers. Everybody now has a college degree. Everybody thinks that they must get a college degree and they must go into debt in order to get this college degree, right? And so what happens is that, in the past, having a college degree meant something. In the past, say, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, it meant something. Today, it doesn't mean anything. Everybody's got a college degree. You have baristas at the fucking Starbucks in between them cleaning up after the homeless, right? Those baristas, they got like a PhD in fucking comparative literature, right? It doesn't mean shit. A college education today means nothing. When you're 18, you don't know enough about yourself to be able to make decisions that are going to affect you for the rest of your life. Taking on loans, these student loans, these usurious student loans, this is going to alter you for the rest of your life. And you have to be very careful about taking on loans. Only a fool would take on $100,000 worth of debt. But see, that's the thing. You see, it's not that people are stupid. They've been convinced that this is a good idea. It's not. It's a horrible idea. Okay? It's an absolutely horrible idea. But they do it because everybody else is doing it. And when you're 18, you don't have enough independence of thought to be able to say, wait. Is this a good idea? Is it a good idea for me to follow all the other lemmings and just like run right off that cliff? Is it a good idea? There are very few 18-year-olds who can stop at the edge of the cliff and say, no, this is a horrible idea. Very few. Now, you who are watching this, I'm frankly hoping that the people watching this video are 17, 16, 18-year-old kids, young kids. Don't jump off the cliff. You're going to die, okay? You're going to be like this kid I was talking about. This kid who's 22, 23 years old. He's earning minimum wage, and he's got $100,000 worth of debt. And he's going to have to, do some sort of like postponement on the loan or whatever. And as he does each postponement, that debt is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And it's going to prevent him from getting married. It's going to prevent him from buying his first home. It's going to prevent him from getting further education. It's going to prevent him from doing a whole host of things that he wants to do with his life. But worst of all is that, see, when you have a debt, especially a big debt, a money debt, it weighs on you. It weighs on your spirit. And what happens in that case is that you decide not to do the things that you'd like to do. You don't travel just for the hell of it to see the world. You decide to get a good job as quickly as possible so you have the money to pay the debt. You decide not to spend an evening talking with a friend, talking about important subjects, personal subjects, because you say, tomorrow I got to get to work at that job that I hate, but it's enough money to pay the loan. When you have a loan, you're always thinking about it. It starts to dominate your life. It's a weight on your shoulders, on your spirit, on your soul. At this time, the average high school graduate earns $17,000 less than the average college graduate. But that's of all workers from the time that they graduate high school or college and the time that they retire. If you look at recent college graduates and recent high school graduates, the numbers are virtually identical. They are virtually identical. And what does that mean? It means that the college grad spent 4 years in college, which is basically, like a Club Med, right? Doing nothing except partying and taking bullshit classes, right? He's saddled with a huge debt. The average debt in the United States is $30,000 for a college graduate, right? A recent college graduate. So he's saddled with at least $30,000 debt, if not a lot more, like $100,000, like the case I told you about, right? And he goes out into the world, and he's earning the same as the guy who just got a high school diploma. And the difference being, of course, is that the college graduate spent 4 years in college, not working. Whereas the high school graduate spent those 4 years working. So he's earning more than the college graduate of his same age. And he's going to continue earning more. And he's not going to be saddled with debt. That's the key issue. The key issue, it's the debt. The debt kills your life. There's a reason that in the past, usury, that is, lending money for profit, there's a reason that in the past, usury was punishable by death. Because in a very real sense, usury, loans, interest-accruing loans, can kill you. If you're a high school student, don't go to college, don't go into debt, do something else with your life, anything else. Go out into the world, travel, read the right books, do this, that, the other. It doesn't matter what you do. Just don't go into this debt because it will kill you. That's my pitch. I hope it helps.